We repeat, the flying gimp has been destroyed. Welcome to the Hey Guys podcast. I'm Rob, that's Liam. And this week we watched, well, it was definitely a movie, 1993's Freaked, directed by Alex Winter and Tom Stern. A film that was rife with complications, from losing its original title of Hideous Mutant Freaks to the more accessible Freaked. It had its budget cut dramatically, causing it to lose an original Iggy Pop song and further special effects. Now, after poor test screenings, it caused Fox to pull the film from its nationwide release and cut its advertising budget. Despite a positive critical response, Freaked opened in only 2 screens in the whole of the United States and earned a total of $30,000 in its entire theatrical run. Now, with all this in mind, and knowing me as you do, I bet you're waiting for me to say, nah, this film is still great and people are missing out. And well, no. It is with deep regret that I must say that this film is bad. From the lackluster plot to the gags that go nowhere and the terrible acting. Alex Winter struggled in his film, and you can see why his career may have taken a hit after this. Now, all that aside, I must say that even after losing his budget and paying Keanu Reeves $1 million to be Ortiz the dog boy, that's right, uncredited Keanu Reeves got $1 million. The effects are great. The physical comedy is good. And while it's trying to have fun with itself, it just slightly falls short. The actors are doing what they can, but even with names like William Sadler, Randy Quaid, and Mr. T, nothing is able to save this film. But Liam, please save us. Tell us why this film is great.
Well, I can't say why it's great. I mean, I can imagine if I can see why you picked this film, put it that way.
I loved it as a kid. No, I understand.
Yeah. But the window is brief. Like, I wish I'd seen this when I was like 12, 13 years old. This is like some kind of stoner, garbage pail kids for teens movie. It's pure, it's dumb. Yeah. It's paced at 1,000,000 miles per hour.
So this is one, sorry to interrupt you. This is one that, as I've said previously, that came off the shelf from my mother. Mm-hmm. So my mother picked one during lunchtime work, left it at home. So this was one that was just sitting there waiting for me. Decent name, Freaked, it's about a monster. Play it, happy days, loved it. I probably just watched, was it not The Monster? And what was the film Little Monsters with Howie Mandel and Fred Savage, which again, I love that film. I'm afraid to go back to that one now.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my introduction to it. And I did have the original VHS, but I don't think it's ever come out on DVD or anything. So
no, it has. It got released in 2005 on DVD. Bizarrely, the 2005 version has an array of special features.
Over here, mind? Over here?
I'm not sure if it's over here. I just read up because this is the first time I've seen this film. I remember seeing the video in the video shop back when I was younger. I know there was a 2005 2-disc DVD with loads of special features. There was a 2013 Blu-ray. Yeah, well, that's the thing. The surprising thing was the 2013 Blu-ray is just the movie. It doesn't have any special features. The 2005 Blu-ray, which is both are out of print now, so they're both like collector's editions, I think. But the 2005 DVD print for a film, like you said, which was a pretty major flop, somehow this had a budget of 12 million. Basically, they've tricked one Fox executive to give him the money, who was then fired by Rupert Murdoch, only for the new executive to look at this film and, as you mentioned in the intro, just go, wait, what the fuck is this film? So it got completely shelved, not in the most literal sense. As you say, it made a couple of screens in the US. It actually got wide release in Japan and Australia, of all places. I'm not sure why. Yeah. But it kind of basically, I don't want to say bombed, because it didn't get a chance to be a hit. It was just completely swept under the rug. You can kind of see why, because if this movie doesn't work for you, it really will not fucking work for you. And that's back in 1993. And that is one of the things of this film. It's so aggressively 1993. And obviously, we've gone back to a whole bunch of movies from the 80s, even the 70s, blah, blah, blah. The problem with this, to a certain extent, is that not only is it a comedy, but it's a specific type of comedy. And going back to a comedy, which you loved as a kid and haven't like re-experienced as an adult, it's kind of like waking up next to that girl you pulled at 2 a.m. in the club. It's like, there's that fear factor. It's like, when I roll over and look at this girl, is she going to be what I remember? Or is the morning sunshine going to be particularly unkind? And in this instance, the sunshine of 2025 has been somewhat unkind. Now, as you've already mentioned, the film itself is a complete mess. As a 90-minute ordeal, it's a lot. However, there are, I don't know, things that can be enjoyed about this film. You mentioned the special effects.
There's some saving graces, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
the special
sorry, that's
effects,
what I was going for.
especially when he creates and I'm doing this justice not to call Julian when he merges Julie and Ernie together, and it becomes very celebrity deathmatch esque
Yes.
animation,
Mm-hmm.
and that looks good. I tell you who made his money on this one was fucking Deep Roy. Deep Roy, who famously it was all of the Oompa Loompas in the Tim Burton Willy Wonka film.
Yep.
Not only was he like George Ramirez #3, but he was also Stewie the Troll's stunt double every time he got thrown through a plate glass window.
And you could really tell on that last instance of him getting thrown through the window where he's standing, you could just see his silhouette, but the silhouette's there a little bit too long. You're like, that's just a midget talking to a grown-up about to throw himself through a window. You can see the joke before it happens. And we mentioned it on a few films we've covered recently, where the film itself is enjoyable enough, but you're like, this could have been squeezed down to like a 60-minute Tales from the Crypt episode. Now, this movie, like, it was made by Alex Winter and Tom Stone, as you already mentioned. They were both involved in the short-lived MTV sketch comedy show, The Idiot Box. Now, this is clearly an extension of that. Make no mistake, same style of gross, surrealist stoner comedy.
Yeah.
Only difference is it's being stretched out to 90 minutes. Now, if you took this premise and you squeezed it down and it was like a 30-minute episode or even like less, like a sketch in a 30-minute sketch show, you're like, oh, there's fun to be had here. It's not a 90-minute movie. But even though there's not 90 minutes of material, it still has its foot on the accelerator from the minute go. The comedy is nothing short of obnoxious, let's be honest.
Oh, it's very obnoxious. And like you said, it just doesn't stop from start to finish. It just goes like that. Just everything. They're trying to be funny with Santa Flan and everything. And it's so funny because it's a South American country that they've gone to where everybody is whiter than me in Cardiff. Like, it's absolutely
except
ridiculous.
For maybe some of the people at the actual freak show, but like they're going for somewhere between, tonally at least, Wayne's World, Bill and Ted, Mad Magazine, where I can only assume Stewie, for instance, is in this film as a kind of nod to Mad Magazine.
Yes.
That's the only reason for him to be in it. There's like a hint of Monty Python and a whole lot of early 90s MTV music videos. Now, that's a lot to take in, and there's a lot on the screen. You can make this work. It just doesn't quite land here. Like, there's that early 90s aesthetic, as I mentioned previously, which is very reminiscent of stuff of like Mallrats. Everything, for instance, looks like, they make a joke about it in the film, the whole, what is it? Magic Eye thing.
Yeah.
Everything in this film feels like a magic eye for 90 minutes. I mean, it actually starts with the opening credits. The opening credits for this film are like, do you ever play those video games, Dark Souls and Elden Rings, the FromSoft games? They have like a kind of noob check early in those games. Basically, what they have is those, like, for those who don't know, and most people will probably listen to this podcast, but they're notoriously difficult video games. And what they do is they have a super hard boss really early in the game as almost like a kind of skill check. Like, are you ready for this game? Because if you can't get past this boss, you haven't got a fucking prayer. And it's, even for skill players, it's really hard to get through that. I feel like the opening credits are the noob check for this movie. Like, are you down with us? Are you into our style? Because it is just noise and flashing lights. And I was like, my wife just bailed. She was just like, what the I'm fucking out. She just left the room. She never came back. And I don't
Does she look down on me? Is she looking down on me right now? She's just thinking, Rob chose this.
Please don't make it sound like my wife is dead. Is she looking down on me now? But then it does go into, and you use it as the opening quote, one of the greatest opening lines of all time. We repeat, the flying gimp has been destroyed. I don't know what that's about. It was good fun. There's individual nuggets of gold in this film, but the rest of it is just so goddamn messy.
I tell you where the gold didn't come from. It definitely didn't come from Ernie. Like, that guy was try hard, if anything. From the moment you see him on the plane, where he's got that hand in his pants, and it's the whole, what have you done that? And it was something I scratched, and then this happened. And just everything with him. And I kept confusing Julie, whilst we're on the subject, with Billy Madison's missus. Adam Sandler, Billy Madison.
Yeah. I know.
It looks exactly like it. They're two different ones. But Billy Madison, I'm totally going off on a tangent here. Billy Madison's missus in Billy Madison. She was Sonya Blaze or Blade or whatever it is
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
Mortal
That's
Kombat film.
in
Yeah,
Mortal Kombat. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, this girl is this girl. I shouldn't just call her Judy.
Megan
Um,
Ward.
Megan Ward. She's a much sweeter. You know, both kind of aesthetically, like the actress from Billy Madison. She's much more traditionally, I guess, sexy and statuesque.
Yeah.
Hence the whole Sonya Blade thing. I actually think she's perfectly fine in this. It's just the material that they have to work with. I mean, I quite like the fact that it feels somewhat I don't know, kind of modern, I suppose, for her to have that whole look where she's wearing the red beret and she's got that ridiculous t-shirt on where it's something to do with like beavers and what the hell was it? I can't even remember now. I did have it written down somewhere. Save the burrowing sloth t-shirt.
Yes.
It's basically just this kind of a whole idea of somebody who's being overtly woke in the face of common sense. And that's almost her shtick, but it's only her shtick for like the first, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And once they're at the freak show, it just turns into an extended Three Stooges gag with her and her kind of joined twin, as it were.
Ernie, yeah.
Ernie, yes, thank you. But it's I don't know. Like we mentioned the fact that the comedy doesn't all work, and a lot of the jokes and references are so of their time. Like there's like a Bob Villa joke. Nobody is getting that in 2025. A Celebrity Squares section, which kind of is kind of fun, but most people are looking at it like, I don't know what's going on. The running I like Ike joke. Like they reference that in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull because it's based in the 50s. I suppose it's supposed to be, oh, look, he's an old man. He's referencing Eisenhower's presidential campaign from 1952. I'm not quite sure what it's doing in this film. There's like I said, the aforementioned Three Stooges stuff. There's even an Ich bin ein Freak joke, which is referenced John F. Kennedy's Cold War speech in West Berlin. And I'm like, who exactly are these jokes for? Amidst all the, as you say, hand in the pants physical comedy stuff. It's just they've thrown everything at the wall with this film. Fucking everything, and nearly everything has failed to stick, basically.
There were three things that made me laugh more than they should have. I'm sorry to say. The first one being I and I, not them particularly, but when they go in Rastafari. I don't know, that was quite clever.
Rastafarian eyeballs are so fucking bananas. And just as you think they can't be any more insane, they come back later in the film and one of them is smoking out of the center of his eyeball.
Yeah.
I was like, there's a moment in this film, just to give you an idea if you haven't seen this, and it is just be clear, even though it's, you can't get the DVD, you can't get the Blu-ray, you can't stream anywhere, the whole movie is available to watch on YouTube, and it's like a 4K upscaled AI upscale, I think it was saying. Anyway, it looks very good, the upscaling. And it's worth watching just for the moment when two Rastafarian eyeballs shoot to death a sock-headed human with two Uzis, voiced by Bobcat Goldthwait. Now, you might be listening to this and go, that sounds like the greatest movie of all time. I tell you what, that moment is fucking dope. That moment is dope. Like I said, there are moments of gold here. It's just, you have, like, there's a lot to sit through where you're like, wow, man, this is a fucking movie.
The second of the three of the laugh out loud moments, again, this may come towards my humor more than anything else. Randy Quaid using a real mouse as a computer mouse. I thought was just, I don't know why that made me laugh, but okay, that made me laugh.
No, like there are a few moments I laughed in this film, and like you said, because they throw so much at the wall, regardless of almost what your sense of humor is, there'll be something for you to enjoy in this film. The only problem is it'll probably be so fleeting. And because it shifts around, there's a good chance you're going to hate everything else. And I know a lot of people will have grown up with this movie, listening to this podcast, and be like, what the fuck? They know what they're talking about. I don't know, man. You've got to turn that nostalgia off. Those rose-tinted glasses are working very, very hard for you.
Look, I'm the king of rose-tinted glasses, as we know.
Oh, absolutely. I thought you were going to come in and tell me
No. I picked films out of, like, things that I've stuck with that I've given 5 stars. I technically shouldn't give 5 stars to, but I can't rescue this film. Like you say, they threw shit at the wall to see what sticks, and something sticks, but unfortunately, I can't rescue this film and say it's fantastic. The third one for me was the milkman gag. When he's already dressed as the milkman, he runs into 12 milkmen. But it's what Ortiz says as well, and it shouldn't be funny. He's just like, 12 milkmen is theoretically possible. 13 is just silly. Looks like there's one milkman too many. Coogan. Why is that funny? Why did that make me laugh?
That
Because
whole
12
stretch is
milkmen
actually one of the best bits. And even when it cuts back to Randy Quaid and he looks outside, he's like, "That's a lot of milkmen." It's just like, no wonder they're fighting. It's like all fight, like they're all fighting over the same job. It's a ridiculous. I actually really like Randy Quaid in this one. I think tonally, he's the closest to getting it right, to making it work for this film, because everyone else is kind of a bit all over the place. And that is one of the things, like, it was filmed so quickly. And all I can assume is they've looked at it. They cannot believe, Alex Winter and Tom Stern, this is, that they've managed to wrangle 12 million out of 20th Century Fox. And like, dude, we've got to just start making this film before somebody realizes what the fuck is going on. And they had never made a feature-length movie before. They'd never shot on 35 millimeters before. They'd just done the Idiot Box. Obviously, they've been in the industry, but they've never had a budget. They've never had a movie. And in fairness, there are times when you can see the budget on screen, like the Freak Show itself. Randy Quaid with like the giant head. I bet you if Keanu cost $1 million, I bet you that fucking spinning head cost another $1 million. That's for damn sure. And a lot would have obviously gone into most of the kind of Freaks special effects, because it is largely great. But it's so ramshackle, and you can see in the performances and the way it's shot that they're just flying by the seat of their pants. And I have no doubt that filming this was largely really good fun, as long as you weren't Alex Winter and covered in fucking makeup. It looks uncomfortable. That's because it fucking was. He was, because he was like not only starring in it, he's covered in makeup and he was directing it. And he was just like, I don't have enough time. So he just kept the makeup on. He was driving to the set each day with all that fucking shit on him. And in case you hadn't noticed, his face looks super uncomfortable. And he said the first day he was shooting, he opened his mouth, tried to talk, it just tore his mouth open. There's blood everywhere, and he kept filming. It's just like, yeah, I can totally buy into that. The one thing I'll say in his defense is, not in his defense, kind of celebrating his performance, I guess, to one extent or another, is that it's so incredibly unflattering. For like, somebody's coming off Bill and Ted, looking to become, let's be honest, a star at that point, to put on makeup that is so incredibly unflattering was a big swing for the fences.
It was everything for that. And that's what I said about the physical comedy, because he's got a hunch over as well. So he's not walking straight or anything like that. He's not walking tall. He's like doing this weird pop drag thing he's doing. In regards to the makeup for his face as well, the constant amount of drool was his drool. He said it was his saliva because the half had to keep his mouth open. He couldn't close his other half. So and that's why he talks like he did. Because try talking with half your mouth just wrenched open constantly. You're gonna talk like that. So, I mean, I give it to him. He took the ball and he ran with it, and it was his ball in the first place. So he's got to do what he. But unfortunately, there was just a lot that just again couldn't save it. But Randy Quaid as well surprised me. No matter what film I watch Randy Quaid in, he never seems like he's 7 foot tall. Why did he look like he was a fucking monster? Was he wearing stilts? He looks so big in this one.
He is a big guy, and
he is a big guy. But you don't.
But he's acting next to Alex Winter, who's a small dude. Like, he's not tall. Yeah. So I think Alex Winter, if you see him in stuff, obviously we covered Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey last week. He's considerably shorter than Keanu Reeves, and Keanu Reeves is a relatively tall guy. I assume Keanu Reeves is like 6'1" or something like that. But I think Randy Quaid's a big fucking guy. I'm not saying like 6'7" or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was like 6'3" or something. And he's just naturally, like you see him in all these films, he's a big dude, and he always gives a solid performance. Like, you are getting a Randy Quaid performance for sure, but he's good. And that is one of the pros of this film for sure, is the cast. I mentioned there, it's like Alex Winter, although I have my misgivings about him. I mentioned the fact that when he becomes the Freak, the performance makes more sense. When he's playing just Ricky at the start of the film, I'm going to go on record and say I fucking despise his performance for the first 20 minutes of this film. Yeah. Despite, I don't know what he was going for. If there's one thing I hate, I think he's given you.
He's doing it on purpose. He's giving you arrogant and obnoxious prick, and he's doing it really well.
But he's so unlikable. And what I hate, my least favorite kind of comedy is gurning comedy, and he's just gurning his fucking ass off. And I know he's not supposed to be likable, but I find him unpleasant to watch. But once he becomes, the Freak, he's much better. So William Sadler's good in a relatively brief role. Mr. T is surprisingly good in this. Keanu Reeves, I know they paid $1 million, and I'm not sure if I would have known that Ortiz was Keanu Reeves if I hadn't been told, but he's quite good. He is
Yeah.
quite good.
Yeah.
Bobcat Goldthwait's quite fun. Brooke Shields, I'm not sure quite why she's in it, but she's quite good. And
Morgan fucking Fairchild
of course,
as the air hostess who finds Stewie. Like what? Like how did they get these people to be in
Stewie,
it?
why? Right, just to be clear, right? Because I kind of hinted towards it. Is Stewie just in there as a Mad Magazine reference? Is that the only reason?
I don't know.
The
I
whole
mean,
Stewie the troll thing, I just didn't
Yeah.
get. But I was like, he's got the big ears. They're clearly going for a Mad Magazine vibe. It has to just be that. I can't think of
Yeah.
any other fucking reason he's in there.
it was all kind of shoehorned in, wasn't it, with Stewie, with the whole like number
Totally.
one fan, and he can hide anywhere, and like he's got ESP to connect. Like they've got a strong bond, and it's just ridiculous.
It's
Speaking of
almost
Stewie-
as if they're making it up as they fucking went along.
Speaking of Stewie, I want to read out a bunch of films to you, right? I'm just going to read the names of the films. It's like there is a point I'm getting to. Step Up to the Street, Step Up 3D, G.I. Joe Retaliation, Gem and the Holograms, Now You See Me Too, Crazy Rich Asians, In the Heights, Wicked, Wicked for Good, and coming up, Oh, the Places You'll Go. What did they all have in common?
I'm willing to bet, if there was a way of proving it, I would bet every penny in my bank account that you are the first person on earth to read those movies in that order. 100%. I would bet. I wouldn't even give a 10% benefit of the doubt. I'd be like, no, I'm putting all my shit on the table. That of 7 billion people, nobody has ever said those movies in that order. Just ever.
I think you'll lose because every one of those movies was directed by John M. Chu. That's his directorial list.
Amazing.
Okay. Why am I bringing this up? Because John M. Chu, the gentleman who's directed all of these, I believe Oscar-winning Wicked may have won an Oscar or two. I'm not too sure. Was the what did they class him as in this? Sorry. The giant Stewie monster. John M. Chu, the director of all of those, was the giant Stewie monster in this fucking film.
They were just bringing anyone at this point. But again, they could have afforded to, because I know like 12 million doesn't sound like a lot, but in 1993, 12 million was a decent budget, especially for, let's be clear, this fucking movie. This, like, I cannot believe they pitched this and someone was just like, yeah, let's give him 12 million. Because initially, as you said, this was supposed to be a much smaller budget. I think it was supposed to be 100,000. It was supposed to be like surrealist. It was supposed to be ultraviolet, and it was going to star the Butthole Surfers. And they could not get the funding for that. And then all of a sudden, they're just like, oh, we'll just make it PG-13, like, and we'll get the Butthole Surfers, of course. And like, oh, here's 12 million. What the fuck just happened? It goes to show, if you just catch the right guy doing the wrong line of coke, you'll get the money. As I said, that guy was,
and that's why he was fired.
Of course, yeah. Like somebody has looked at basically this went to like film festivals before it was released onto 2 screens. They've seen it, they've seen the prints and been like, fire that. How much? 12 million. They give you, what the fuck is happening? Fire him, shoot him out of a cannon, whatever it takes. Absolutely.
Do you know who the actor John Hawkes is?
John Hawkes doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah. So he's one of the guys whose name you'll never know, but his face you'll know. He's been in things like Deadwood. He's been in a few films with Keanu Reeves. He was in Hardball with Keanu Reeves, where he played his friend Tiki. Famously for me, I think he was in 3. I know he was in 3 Billboards Across Ebbing, Missouri.
Great film.
Yeah, great film. Great actor. Great character actor. It's coming from me because I know him. And it's completely blew my mind that he was Cowboy.
Well, he's got the voice and everything, hasn't
he? Yeah. And I think there's a reason why you don't see Cowboy at the end, because when they introduced everyone, and it was funny, that was another thing that made me laugh, when they introduced them all at the end on the Brooke Shields game show or whatever it was, and it's like, everyone's fine.
Yeah.
And we're all good. And then Worm comes out and he goes, just because a guy doesn't like macaroons, I laugh my ass off because, mate, even if you don't like macaroons, if it's going to make you help you wipe your own ass.
Wasn't the whole thing that they didn't know that the macaroons were going to save them? It was just a coincidence. So they had the remember, he had the stuff, the juice, but he got, and I was wondering at the time, I was like, what is the point of this stupid joke? So he makes it through the tunnel and he's just like, oh, I lost the goop or whatever the fuck it's called. And everyone boos him and throws lettuce at him. But he goes, oh, but I brought a bag of macaroons. And then they all have a macaroon party and all pass out. And I was like, what the fuck was the point of that? And of course, the point was the macaroons had the secret ingredient to save them all. Oh my God, so incredibly stitched together. And the same is true of the what is it, EES, so Everything Except Sneakers Company, and Scuggs, or Randy Quaid's company. I don't know why they're suddenly together towards the end of the film. It all just feels like a coincidence
So
that they
weren't.
send him to South America, and then he accidentally ends up at the freak show. But then
No,
the
I
freak
think
show are making the stuff, and I'm just like, is
he
this
was
a
always
coincidence?
he was always going to end up there. They were providing the Zygot 24 or Zygrot, whatever it was, to
Mhm,
him.
mhm.
And so EES are providing it to Scuggs.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
Scuggs is using it to create his freak.
But it looked like it was a complete coincidence that they
I think it
went.
was I think it was a coincidence that he ended up at the freak show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I also think
That's such a big coincidence, though.
but I also think Santa Flan's maybe not that big.
Yeah, you are giving him such a massive benefit.
I am trying.
I know you are.
I'm grasping
And
at straws.
if
The other
I'm
thing
gonna,
that made me laugh.
oh, sorry,
Sorry. The
no,
other
no,
thing
go
that
for it.
made me laugh, as I'm thinking about it now, the plane thing, beginning where the
That was
plane
quite good.
explodes for no reason, nobody says it, and it just cuts to Ernie and Ricky, and they go, thank God we weren't on that plane." Like I don't even know why
there were
that.
some decent jokes. There were decent jokes, like this everything with Bobcat Goldthwait. I found his character genuinely funny. The whole when they're doing their whole flashbacks when they're telling their stories, and
Yeah.
then they just look over and there's just a spanner on the floor. No, sorry, a hammer, but it
A
was
hammer, and he was a spanner. Yeah.
Like that was good stuff. And the
When
bit
they-
where Mr. T shows up and he whispers in his ear, "You know, you'd be better off without that dick." And he just looks at him, goes to punch him, and then gives him a hug instead.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a surprisingly progressive joke, and it stars Mr. T. I'm like, that is good stuff. There is like the thing is, this might be a relatively high percentage, not a high percentage, sorry, it's a low percentage, a high number of successful jokes in this movie. When you're like, dude, there's like 10 or 11 pretty funny jokes in this film. The problem is the percentage of successful jokes is super low because there's like 7,000 of them. And and the ones that don't land crash spectacularly into the sea. That's
absolutely. The other one that was good, speaking of the sea, when they introduced the freak, the frogman, scuba diver.
Yeah, and they really kept playing up on that, didn't they? Like, I just didn't really get it, and I liked it.
I liked it. Like, he could just take his mask off; he'd be fine.
Like, you know, they kind of. In fairness, it is relatively self-aware, and I'm trying to figure out just how self-aware it is. So they've got two things. So the Zygot is the Zergot, whatever it's called. The Zygot 24, yeah.
Zygot
so
24,
basically, that's just a stand-in for the dangers of selling out. Which in like early 90s, nothing was worse for Gen Xers than the concept of selling out. Can't get on board with that. I like the whole. He's doing basically a doctor, the island of. God, excuse me, I had a hiccup then. The Island of Dr. Moreau. I know the film came out in 96, but the book was already out. So they are trying to say things. And behind the scenes, there's this whole idea about you should be happy with who you are. Looks aren't important, blah, blah, blah. And they reference that at the end when they're back on the Brooke Shields talk show. But they tear through it so quickly in such a knowing way that they're just like, listen, we know we haven't really nailed any of this, but they're in there somewhere. You can kind of hang your hat on that if you want to. But beyond that, they also have these really kind of winky jokes towards the end where they're basically suggesting that they know the movie is boring. It's like there's two jokes. So he's basically, the framing device is him telling the story. So he's basically telling Brooke Shields the movie. And then when it gets to the end, so it's the end of the talk show and it's the end of the movie, everyone in the crowd is asleep as if, oh, what you've been telling us is super boring. Like basically making an in-joke that we know the movie is. And I'm like, is that what they're trying to do or is that a happy accident? And at first I thought it's got to be an accident. But then just after that, they do this whole thing where Julie and Ricky get together and they're just like, oh, it's finally over. And the way they're saying it is almost to say the movie is finally over. And I'm I think they're quite self-aware about it.
They even had this scene. I read about it before I watched it. I'm not too sure. Now, the problem is we can only get this in the UK on YouTube. So I may have had one that was cut down a bit. I don't remember it missing anything that I remember watching when I was younger. But when I read about it, there was a scene where Brooke Shields, and I think I've got it in facts anyway, so I may be repeating myself. But Brooke Shields says, "Okay, Ricky, we need to move on. You've been talking for 90 minutes." And then the audience are asleep. But because of all the cuts that the studio made them do, it was like literally like the hour and 12 mark or something. It was something like that.
Because the movie, even with the credits, I think the hour's like the movie's like 85 minutes long.
Yeah, it's not long.
I'm sure that joke made sense, but yeah, they made him make a whole bunch of cuts, and I can see why, because this film like I don't know what an extra 20 minutes is going to add. Like that is the one thing you'll say about it is that it's over before you know it. And I
Yeah.
do think, as I said, for all our criticisms, I can still to throw out that olive branch. If this was your favorite movie, and this isn't just to you, this is to anyone listening. If this was a film you loved at 12 or 13, I thought I get it. I get it. It's got that, like I said, that puerile stoner, million miles per
Yeah.
hour style
You're
of
watching
comedy.
this.
It's
You're
basically
watching this.
everything is covered in goop, like you're watching a kind of X-rated version of fucking Nickelodeon. I understand. It's just it hasn't aged well at all.
You're watching this, California Man and Biodome in a row.
Oh, that's a great show. Biodome.
Yeah.
That was a film I had a brief window where I really liked Biodome, and that would have been, say, to me what this movie was to you. And you probably watched Biodome as well. I'm sure.
I love Biodome. Yeah,
pushed it.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. You love Biodome because you're like in the same way that if you had said we're having this conversation last week, you would have gone, "Oh, I love Freaked," and then you go back and watch them as an adult, you're like, "Ooh, I tell you what, Paulie sure isn't as funny as he was when I was 13. I'll tell you that fucking much right now."
Stephen Baldwin hasn't punched anybody yet, so I don't know what's going on with that.
What was the film again? You know, like talking about a movie where it came out at the perfect time in your life. The Pest with John Leguizamo.
Oh, for fuck's sake, The Pest.
Yeah, I know, right? I went through a very brief phase of really liking that film, and for some odd reason, all my friends watched it, and we used to quote it loads. Last year, the intro came up, and it's just him in the shower singing
In the shower
song.
when he's a vampire and he's on about being stinky. Oh, dude.
Oh my god, dude! I wanted to jump out of a fucking window for ever having liked it. I found it utterly unbearable, and I was like, "Fuck!" I used to really like this film for like 5 minutes.
Same. I did. Do you know, right? You put all your money on nobody ever seeing that list of films. I could have put my money on us doing another 500 episodes and never have anyone mention The Pest. Like,
I know, such an odd
hell.
film. But this, I do feel like this belongs in that same category of kind of mid-90s extreme comedy. And I know we keep referring to the whole MTV thing, but that aesthetic, and you can kind of associate with stoner culture, skateboard culture, that even the aesthetic of Ricky himself as a monster, I can imagine that image on a skateboard. You know, everything was extreme. Everything was to the max. Nothing was trying to aim beyond the 12, 13-year-old teenager. You know, everything felt like a Mega Drive game. And I'm stepping on the video game section here. It's just, we mentioned with Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, like the fashion. There was like a window between like 87 and 92 where the fashion was very distinct and the view of the future was very distinct. I think we described it as neon and styrofoam. Like now that kind of like 93 to 96, 97, it was that kind of extreme era of 90s-ness. And this encapsulates this so perfectly. Not perfectly because it's quite horrible, but that is the thing. It belongs in time and a place. And we were the right age. And as I said, because I'm watching this now for the first time as an adult, I'm like, this is rough. Like I said, not without caveats, but it's largely rough. But I'm fully aware that if I'd watched this the same age you watched it the first time, I would have felt exactly the same.
Yeah.
I would have felt exactly the same.
Do me a favor. Name an actress that you think is hot. Past, present, future. Any actress you think is hot.
Kate Beckinsale.
Okay. If a random person tells you they've taken a shit that looks like Kate Beckinsale naked,
yeah,
would you go into the random outhouse to look at it?
I mean, the Kate Beckinsale part of that is irrelevant. I would go as far as say if one of my friends was convinced, if he came in and it was just like, dude, I've taken a shit and it looks like, I don't know, fucking Morgan Freeman, anyone, I'd be like, I kind of have to see this. Like, honestly, if one of my friends told me they've taken the biggest shit of all time, I'd be like, I'm going to go see it.
Yeah, but dude, you missed my context. I didn't say friend. I said stranger.
Oh, stranger.
If a stranger
no,
comes out of the blue and tells somebody, like a friend, I bless him, thankfully I don't have her anymore. I've had a picture somebody have sent me. I'm not going to name the person. Somebody has sent me of the shit that they've taken, which was so big it looked like a dick.
Dude, I've sent pictures of my cats taking a shit because one of my cats, like she's this beautiful, absolutely gorgeous princess of a cat, but she just takes massive shits. And honestly, there was one time where I was just like, man, I think my wife might be playing. I thought maybe she had shat in the litter box. I thought like, and I was just like, no, no, no. My wife would never do that. She's not into practical jokes. But if I was living with anyone else but my wife, I would have been convinced that I was like, I'm on the wrong end of a practical joke here. A human took that shit. There's no way a cat took that shit. There's no fucking way. But
In an off pod conversation, we had to delay starting this pod so Liam could go and clean up the cat shit.
yeah, I did. Well, they're just
Yeah.
savages. But no, to bring it back to your initial point, I don't give a fuck if a stranger has taken a shit, and perfectly recreated the Mona Lisa. I'm not going to follow a stranger to see their shit. I'm just not.
Yeah. That also was what's his
Sorry,
name?
what
Tim
was the
Burns.
point of this question?
I just took because that milkman who went to do it was Tom Stern, the
Oh,
the
okay,
director.
yeah, got you.
But also Tom and Alex
Mhm.
played the gay couple who were like, if you have a sensitive disposition,
Was that
leave
them?
now. That was them too. That
I
was
did
Tom
not
Stern
notice
and
that
Alex
at
Winter.
all.
Yeah,
I didn't notice that at all. The one moment he was out of makeup, apparently, which
yeah,
again was awesome. And I don't know. It's like, as I said, the Celebrity Squares bit really worked. When I think of it, I was like, oh, maybe the film's going to start rolling here because I like. As I said, the opening I really didn't like. But when it actually got to the freak show and Randy Quaid gets out, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of on board. But then when you actually got to the freak show itself, I was like, it felt like an extended joke, but without any actual jokes in it. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, this isn't going to work. That was when I really got the fear. I was just like, I don't think I'm going to like this movie very much, or at least it's not going to land for me in terms of my sense of humor. But even with like comedy, and comedy is the most subjective of maybe all movie types in terms of genres. It's like, comedy either works for you or it doesn't.
yeah.
But I think even if you remove your own sense of humor from this, you can watch this as an adult and say the movie itself just doesn't really work. Like that's the biggest issue with it, kind of thing. So it is what it is. Although,
absolutely.
as I said, there are those surrealist moments which kind of like get me back in the film. And we already mentioned the Rastafarian eyeballs, and I thought, oh, this is got to be the weirdest part in the film. But then the EES get like turned into goop, but then turned into a giant trainer, which then drags itself out of the freak show. I was like, that is so benign. I mean, I should have known stuff that was coming. Like the bit earlier in the film when is it Ernie and Julie get kind of turned into one,
Yeah.
into a freak, so to speak. They use like stop motion animation in the middle of the film.
Yep.
And again, I can't shift from the idea that it just looks like something out of like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater or an MTV video. But it's a bold move aesthetically, and it kind of works in that moment. There are, again, those moments where you're like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. There's loads of interesting things, interesting moments in this film. It just, again, doesn't work as a whole. But it is what it is.
I mean,
sorry.
sorry.
One last thing. I was just talking about random things in this film, which kind of these fleeting moments in a film which is otherwise a mess. Did this film need more fake adverts? I love the whole machismo advert when they're like,
Yeah,
"Are you a
yeah.
big strong man? Do you love cheese? Have machismo." I was like, it came out of nowhere, and you're just like, maybe we could have done with a bit more of that. But I thought, again, another funny bit in a very messy movie. Sorry to butt in there.
No. I can't remember. It was going to be a pointless thing. I was just going to say what you said then was basically describes the nature of this film. Like
I think
everything
so,
about
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Did you?
I don't think
did you
there's much
actually
more.
think- No, I just before we wrap this up, did you think the framing device worked, the whole Brooke Shields, or was it just to get Brooke Shields in the movie? Like, I don't know why Brooke Shields was Scuggs at the end, other than I don't know. They were just like, well, we've got Brooke Shields, we might as well use her.
They were going for the last minute horror thing, wasn't they? With like but it just didn't seem to work.
No, it didn't, did it? Yeah,
I'm all right with
that final shot was very much a kind of, I assume, an homage to I'm thinking Friday the 13th, where he jumps out of the lake at the end. I guess what that. But there's so many, as I said, the jokes are from all over the map, both in terms of time and genre and everything else. There's 1,000,001 references, most of them stuck in the the 90s. But yeah, it just doesn't all come together.
I'm all right with the framing device because it gets to introduce that he was this child actor and blah blah yada yada yada. Instead, you're gonna have to try and shoehorn that in somehow. You're gonna have to explain why Stewie, the Mad Magazine troll, is following him around and things like that. So the framing device for me is fine. It doesn't quite work at the end. Which is again stupid. He's telling the story. The story ends with Scuggs turning into Brooke Shields.
Yeah, that's
But
the thing, yeah.
he's gone to the Brooke Shields talk show. And he's like, oh, yeah. But he looked exactly like you, everything down to your skanky legs kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say that, but it's just like, come on, that is weak. That's very weak. It should have had that he turned into a woman, but you couldn't see who it was because you just saw the back and she ran away. oh,
Yeah,
look, it's
yeah.
Brooke Shields. But yeah, that was a bit weak at the end. But I didn't mind the opening part of it, and I did like the fact as well with his lights off because you think he's still a freak. But then at the end, they go, "Oh no, we fixed his light. Turn around, there's a cactus behind him, kind of thing." So I
Yeah,
thought that
yeah,
was
yeah.
okay. But
Like, yeah, yeah. I don't hate every single moment, and there is a certain charm to this film. Like, I think one of the biggest issues, largely, is that I've sat in the house and watched it on my own. As I honestly think, if you and I had been watching this film, like, say, together over a few beers, I
yeah,
might have like. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be coming out and saying this is a masterpiece. I don't care if I watch this in like a midnight showing in like a local cinema with like-minded folk. There's no way I'm coming out of this film going, "This film's fucking awesome." But there is a time, a place, and an experience you can have with this film where it can be fun if you meet it halfway. You
yeah,
have to meet it halfway. And maybe because I wasn't mentally prepared for what this film really was, that I was kind of, finding out on the go. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a lot, man. Where is this going? If I rewatched it, as I said, under perfect the perfect setting, I think there could be fun to be had as a kind of B movie experience. But
yeah.
I wouldn't suggest anyone, if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't watched it before, like maybe fire it up on, I don't know, it's free on YouTube. Give it 10, 15 minutes, just see what all the fucking buzz is about, I suppose. Because as I said, there's, you hear those names, you're like, wait, they did say Mr. T, Keanu Reeves, and Bob Cathol. Yeah, these are all things that are in the film. And as I said, Keanu in himself, he's fucking good. But I don't know, man. Well, what
Why
a
was he
movie! What
uncredited?
a movie!
Why would he take 1 million and be uncredited? Like, wouldn't that have sold his name alone would have sold it, wouldn't it? It was 1993, so he's done Point Break.
Dude,
He's done.
he's the only smart guy in the room. That's why he's taking 1 million. He's helping out his mate, and he makes sure that he has nothing to do with this film other than the fucking paycheck. So he's getting his bro points, he's getting his paycheck, and he's also not getting his fucking career ruined by this absolute shower shit of a movie.
Due to the fact as well, when they were doing the production stills, when they were taking the photos and all for the posters and everything, he may have been busy at the time in quotes, but he didn't rock up. So the person who had to get into the makeup and be Ortiz for the posters. Do you want to take a guess?
No idea, based on what we've talked about recently.
Johnny Knoxville.
Was it really?
Yeah,
I mean, they got the same kind of build, I guess.
yeah.
Keanu's maybe a bit more athletic, but yeah, I can totally see that. I can totally see another world where it's just Johnny Knoxville starring as Dog Boy or Ortiz the Dog Boy. And so,
Ortiz the dog boy.
man, what a mad film! What a mad film! All right, let's move on to favorite scenes. So I mentioned it earlier. Mine is the Celebrity Squares like reveal of the freaks. I'm old enough that I can remember Celebrity Squares. It was much more of an American thing. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe it is still a thing in America. I don't know that, but I remember and when I say I remember it, I remember references to it in other films. Like this isn't the first movie to use Celebrity Squares, make no mistake.
No.
I'm not sure if somebody watching this for the first time, like a 25-year-old watching this 2025, has any idea what's going on. This is a reference.
You're all right, dude. We're not reaching 25-year-olds
No, we're
for
not. It's
our
fine,
audience. You're fine.
yeah, it's a good point. So yeah, the Celebrity Squares like reveal of the freaks is actually really cool. I think it's super imaginative, and I actually, as I said, I like the freaks, even down to what's his name, Frog Boy. Like just the fact that he's just in an aqua suit, it's so fucking stupid.
So,
but
I'll have to say, so Celebrity Squares is what we call it. For our American listeners, it's Hollywood Squares. They
Hollywood
probably know what you
Squares.
mean, but yeah.
My apologies. Yeah. So yeah, that's my favorite sequence in the film because, as
Do
I
you know
said,
that,
it kind of highlights the best thing about the film, which is the freaks themselves.
that fucking thing ran from 19, what was it? Celebrity
Ran for
Squares for us,
ages.
1975 to 2015.
Yeah, dude, it's there like blankety blank. And they wasn't the only one. They even did like a Wheel of Fortune bit.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, are they just doing fucking King? They're just doing everything. They're just doing everything.
I do. So for me, I do like the introduction of the freaks. I like the stories that they give and everything like that. But I got to go with just for the weird, like I said, celebrity deathmatch animation style. I got to go for turning them into freaks, turning Ernie, Julie, and Rick into their freak things with the Toad around as well, and Scugs there. So
I mentioned the Toad. I love the fact they like shit at the end when he just blows up. It's like, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, he blows up from that, but he fucking ate an aeroplane.
Well, yeah, that's the
pilots, passengers, and everything. But for some reason, the propeller gave him indigestion.
There you go.
Fuck, but yeah, sorry. Yeah, so
No,
my one
sorry.
was
So
the
I derailed you there. My apologies.
yeah, the
In terms
creation
of
of the freaks for me.
loves, number one, like for all the criticisms we point in this direction, it is massively imaginative and utterly unique. There is
Yeah,
no movie like Freaks, make no mistake.
no,
Number two, the bizarre but utterly wonderful cast, who we've already mentioned, like really great, and not just great names, but they actually, everyone's going for it in this film. Nobody's like half-assing it. There's no like we made jokes about Keanu Reeves showing up for a million stuff. He's going for it in this film, and he's good in it. Mr. T is good in it. Nobody is just phoning in. Nobody here. Number three, the special effects and freak design is fantastic. And we mentioned the fact that this was put into like production so quickly. Like the turnaround, I think, was like less than 2 months from getting the funding to actually starting shooting. So the monster design was completed by 3 separate companies due to that limited lead time. And obviously, before anyone at 20th Century Fox realized what they'd done with their money, but it was Screaming Mad George Studio, Steve Johnson's XFX, and Tony Gardner's Ultron Studio, all working on this film to make it happen like within 2 months and to get the special effects in place. It sounds insane because it probably was, but it works up on screen. The freaks look absolutely amazing. And number 4, I'm going to sneak this in. I just love the audacity of getting it made on a relatively big budget. Just how this film was given a big budget is quite beyond me. Like when I was watching it at the start, I thought it was going to be super low budget. I was like, oh, this is dumb. Whatever. It's just a stupid, dumb, low budget movie. And then when you get to the freak show and you're like, hey, look at that giant head. This is all built stuff. Like this isn't special effects. And I was just like, oh, no. There's some serious money behind this film. So yeah, those are my loves.
Screaming Mad George, the effects company that gave us effects for Big Trouble in Little China, Predator, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4, Arena, which I'd love to do on this podcast.
Dude, I think Arena's on Amazon Prime at the moment.
It is on Amazon Prime, yeah.
Matt, do that. I don't think I've never seen Arena.
Oh,
it's one of those films I've always been aware of it, and I saw the poster. It immediately caught my eye. And do you know what happens when I see those films? Which I'm like, oh man, I didn't see it when I'm younger. I'm just like, I bet Rob did. I bet fucking Rob did.
Yeah, I've seen Arena, and Screaming Mad George himself. Screaming Mad George himself directed the Guyver, not the Dark Hero one that we've covered on this, but the original Guyver.
Oh, the first one with Mark Hamill, yeah.
Mark Hamill, yeah.
Was Mark Hamill?
Yeah. Mark Hamill wasn't the guy, but Mark Hamill was a cop. But that's on Amazon Prime, so treat yourself.
No, yeah. I just remember the treat myself. Dude, I'm still getting over this. I'm not sure if I'm ready to watch the Guyver so soon.
Right. So my loves, basically, mate. We've already talked like for the film, so they weren't going to be any different to yours. But the ensemble cast, I think, is great. I think they, like I've said in my intro, awesome. They're trying. The effects, I like the special effects. I've already mentioned that was my favorite scene. And I got to go with the costume design. Like Cowboy looked fucking great and realistic. Worm looked great. Even Sockhead
looked good. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
When Sockhead takes his sock off and he's a hand, and that made me laugh as well when Scuggs was shouting at them. When Scuggs was shouting at the crowd because they were really upset there was a hand underneath the sock, and he's like, "Puppetry is a lost art form." He's just like.
See, now the more I talk about it, the more I actually like this film. And the whole cowboy thing doesn't actually make any sense because cows aren't boys. All cows are girls.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure. Again, are they in on the joke? Because if
he was a boy, they turned into a cow. He was a boy, they turned into a cow.
Yeah, so it kind of works, I suppose. God damn. See, I'm warming to this film as we're talking about it.
Right, hates. This is where it goes off the rails.
Well, so as we mentioned, the problem is like some of the comedy is just horrible. And the word I used previously, and I think most apt, is that some of it is just obnoxious. And I don't think that's old man Liam talking. There's a way to do this. And I also mentioned earlier about the fact that it has all these bizarre, outdated references. You know who else has bizarre, outdated references? Wayne's World, but it makes it work because the underlying comedy is still solid. The problem here is that if the underlying comedy isn't solid and the reference is I like Ike, and you just keep running back that joke, then it's like it doesn't work on fucking 2 levels then, so it's a complete mess. So despite moments of genuine comedy gold, most of it is horrible. 2, it's probably a bit too scrappy for its own good. You mentioned the fact that this was clearly rushed into production by 2 guys who I'm not sure knew exactly what they were doing. That brings with it a certain amount of charm, but it also brings with it a scrappy directorial style, which gets a little bit grating over 90 minutes or 85 minutes, however long it lasts. Number 3, I wish I'd seen this film when I was 11. I really do.
Yeah.
Because as I said, I think I would have really enjoyed this, at least for that brief window. And I'm just thinking of fourth again, because I always do. I'm just not a fan of Alex Winter's performance in the first 20, 30 minutes. I find it incredibly unpleasant. That face is constantly pulling. I'm not sure if it's in preparation for him to have his face stuck for the rest of it. As I said, I actually like him in the second half of this film, but the first 20, 30 minutes, rough going. But those are my hates.
For me, so scattershot, as you said. It's just all over the place. They're trying everything. I mean, they've been given the money. They've been given anything. Oh, let's try this. Let's try this. Well, no, let's not try it. Let's just put it on screen. Something's going to work. Something's not going to work. Let's just do it anyway.
Well, that's literally these guys who have gone out looking for $100,000, and it ends up with 12 million. They're just like, I don't know what to do with it, but we're spending every penny.
Yeah.
Boom. We're just going to spunk it all over the screen and see what happens.
Number 2, Ernie. I couldn't get on with Ernie.
Didn't land. You're right.
No,
he's supposed to be like the amusing, entertaining sidekick, but
yeah,
the best jokes he had were like Three Stooges gags with Julia. And
is he meant to be like a New Jersey guy or something? I didn't get him.
I don't know. He's supposed to be like a surf dude, but he's also an asshole. He also smokes. There's a lot of smoking in the first 20 minutes of this film. He doesn't really work.
And finally, for me, Stewie the Trolls shouting, Rick! Just, oh, dude, you're fucking doing my Sweden. Will you stop?
Stewie the Troll, again, if we're going on the basis that he's in there specifically as a reference to Mad Magazine, he didn't need to be there beyond the opening sequence. He really didn't. And all I can think is that they painted themselves into a narrative corner and just went, oh, maybe we can just get Stewie back in for this. Terrible choice. But he could have easily been one of my hates as well.
Yeah.
Any alternate? Well, we know there's at least one alternative title for this film because the one they wanted.
Yeah. So the original one that they wanted, they weren't allowed to have, was Hideous Mutant Freaks. But no, we've got some alternative titles. So Argentina was the Circus of Horror.
Mm-hmm.
Brazil, Freakland, the Park of Horrors.
I like the first bit. Freakland's good.
Canada, City of Monsters.
It's not really a city, though, is it?
No. Germany, Freaked Monstrum.
No, Monstrum. Like, if it had like the U with the umlaut, I don't know why that makes it better.
Japan, Mutant Freaks.
It's fine.
Poland, Anything But Shoes.
It's too much of an in-joke, but okay.
Yeah. Spain, The Crazy Stop of the Monsters.
No.
And I made that sound like there was more after that. Finally.
Yeah, you really did. You got that totally all wrong.
The Crazy Stop of the Monsters.
Not totally, sorry. Your intonation was incorrect. There you go. Any facts for this film?
Yes, there were. So we've already said Keanu Reeves was paid $1 million. Alex Winter claims that Mr. T got so stressed out and left the set 3 days before filming was finished. A scab tee was required for one shot. This standing can be seen in one of the cage shots during the battle between the huge Stewie and Ricky. Mr. T was unavailable for redubbing the scene with Ola Milkman, so Lee Arenberg, who played the human fart fire guy,
brilliant.
He did the voiceover instead. Lee Arenberg, obviously, people probably know him as one of the comedy pirates from Pirates of the Caribbean, first 3 films with Mackenzie Crook.
Yeah. And there was a film, I'm sure there was a film we covered relatively recently where he was in it. I'm sure of it, man. And I just can't fucking think of it now that you mentioned it.
Well, it wasn't RoboCop 3.
That's what he's most famous for, is Pirates of the Caribbean. Maybe I just saw him in Pirates of the Caribbean.
I'll have a gander I'll have a gander in a minute and see if I can find it.
Cool.
Test audiences were said to have reacted negatively to the first showings of the completed film. According to Alex Winter on a DVD commentary, many of the younger teen types that made up a majority of the preview crowd were expecting this to be the next Bill and Ted movie, and often were vocal to what they were seeing on screen. During a line of dialogue from Brooke Shields in the opening scene, a young male test audience member rose from his seat to yell, "Fuck you, bitch!" much to the dismay of the filmmakers present.
Who says that about Brooke Shields, man? Jesus Christ.
According to his Instagram, Johnny Knoxville worked as a stand-in and photo double for Keanu Reeves. Due to Keanu Reeves having to be somewhere, Johnny actually appears in the poster as the dog boy character. Winters claims that the original producer of the film was fired by the studio for making too many weird movies. So that's why he was fired, not for all the cocaine.
This was the straw that broke. No. The cocaine is interrelated for sure.
When Tom Stern and Alex Winter played the two gay yuppie types who leave the freak show upon hearing a disclaimer beforehand that the questionable material may not be suitable for more sensitive audience members. About 11 minutes of footage was cut from the film. Some proof of this can be heard near the end when Sky Daily says, "Sorry to interrupt you, Rick, but you've been talking for almost 90 minutes. The footage was cut due to the reaction of test audiences." A joke cut from the final scene of the movie reveals the large garbage bag in Stewie's hand was supposed to be his lunch. In the DVD commentary, the filmmakers claimed that it was the dismembered remains of Stewie's latest serial killings.
Oh, that's quite charming.
I mean, fucking dark.
I know, right?
What else we got here? 3 different visual effects companies. You've already said that. No, that's fine. I mean, I could say Alex Winter, Keanu Reeves, William Sadler, Arturo Gil, Tom Stern all appear in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Indeed, and I tell you what's quite weird about this film, as you mentioned there, the fact that this was shown at some film festivals got like a bad response. When it was sent to critics, it got what can be described as a mixed response. And I mean, like some people genuinely like this. Like this film wasn't slaughtered upon release. I think it's like sitting on Rotten Tomatoes like 50%. And you can imagine it being one of those films that either you get it or you don't. And it would have been more palatable in 1993 for sure. But it wasn't like this was torn apart by any stretch of the imaginations. And Fox initially thought that they had a hit on their hands. I don't know what they were basing that on, but they were actually like figures made for this film. There was a comic book. There was a novelization, all before they realized it was like, oh no, this isn't working. And they removed all the funding. But at first they were going in the complete opposite direction. And they're just like, no, we want the toys. We want the comic books. We want the tie-ins. Freaked is going to be big. And obviously it wasn't. It'd be interesting to see if it was released to a wider audience, if it had been a complete flop or whether it would have just done, I don't think in any world it would have been a massive hit, but would it have done like okay-ish maybe? But obviously it was never given the chance.
Right. So sorry, before you move on, speaking of Lee Arenberg, because I said I'd see if I can see, we haven't done a film of his previously, but we will.
Okay,
we will. So maybe
it's one it could have been just one I've seen on TV then. So don't.
Dude, he was in Tales from the Crypt episode.
Oh,
so
that's
maybe
it.
That's where
it.
It is.
That's 100% it. I was just like, dude, I've seen him in something weird recently. And usually if I've watched something weird, it's usually for the podcast.
Yeah.
Like I've got like an image of him in it, but I couldn't quite place it. And now you've said it, I totally know the episode. I think it might even be one with William Sadler. I think it might even be the first episode of the first season. And anyway, he's
season 2, episode 8, for crying out loud. But going back to him,
oh no, sorry, I totally know the one now. Sorry, I'm mixing them up again. The William Sadler one is a completely different one. I know the episode he's in. Yeah. Sorry, I do apologize. Complete aside.
We will be covering at some point The Wizard, class of 1999, Waterworld. So we will. We
are planning on doing a flop season at some point, aren't we? So the Waterworld has to be included, and The Wizard. That's going to be another one of those films. I mean, it'll be fun to go back to, but I think I knew as a kid that The Wizard was kind of shit. But then, like, I was such a big Nintendo guy.
I just want to do it for the Power Glove.
Oh, 100%. Oh, no, we'll do The Wizard. So
rad.
I think most people...
We're going to do Class of 99 as well. It's going to happen.
Class of 99? Which one's that? Oh, dude. Classic. Yeah, I know exactly what that film is.
Not Class of Newcomb High, Class of 99.
I know Class of 99. Yeah. That'd be an interesting one. Hunt to the Future. So it's where we ask the question, remakes, sequels, Let It Die or Leave Well Alone. I mean, Let It Die for sure. For sure. This belongs back in 1993. We don't need a sequel. We don't need a remake. Just Let It Die. It's fine.
I mean, no shit, Sherlock. If ever there was a
fucking... No, because we've had previous films where the film hasn't worked out, but you're just like, but you can like the concept is solid, and you can imagine like a remake working out. Yeah, with this, exactly. I'm just like, no, just leave it back in '93 for sure.
Exactly, with the concept, with everything, it does not belong in our time. Unfortunately, it's not even our time. We're old men now. It does not belong in the time of 2025. The humor won't work. The fucking none of it will work. Bless it. It's a 1993 film, and it just needs to stay there.
I totally agree. In terms of making a change, so it's where you can make one change to make the movie better. For me, it's just rein the tone in a bit. It's zany, it's stupid and puerile, which is fine and can be fun, but it needs a bit of tact. It needs a bit of refinement to kind of clip it all together. It's too much of everything all the time to the point where even the good stuff struggles to kind of push through because there's just so much mess around it. So a bit of refinement, I think, in this film would go a long way.
Loose Stewie. Just lose Stewie.
Yeah,
I just
that could come under the refinement thing, but lose Stewie is a good shout for sure. No, I don't say lose Stewie because I like the idea of a nod to Mad Magazine, but just make him a cameo, just like 2 minutes. He comes in, he fucking goes. That's it.
All right.
We
All
don't
right.
need.
I'll refine. Lose 90% of Stewie.
Yeah, it's like right. The perfect example of this is Kingsman. Yeah, the first film had maybe it had a cameo with was it Elton John was in the first one as well.
Was he in? He was in definitely in the second one for a long
Well,
time.
there was a cameo anyway in the first one, but the second one they brought in Elton John, and that could have been funny if it was like a 2 minute cameo, and then all of a sudden you're like, this motherfucker's in the film for like 30 minutes, and it just becomes grating and annoying. So yeah, Stewie very much is to this movie what Elton John is to Kingsman to the Secret Service. So yeah, too much of a terrible thing apparently, which could have been funny in a tiny, tiny dose. In terms of video games, unsurprisingly, there was no freaked video games. Maybe if the original executive Fox had got his way, but anyway, I already mentioned it earlier. The only thing I know if you're going to make a video game based on freaked is that it has to be on the Mega Drive. The Mega Drive was all about being extreme, about being to the max. The aesthetic was so bang on this. The timing is perfect. And the first video game that popped to my mind was Toe Jam and Earl. Not because the gameplay has anything to do with freaked, but because aesthetically it's in the exact same ballpark. So that's what I'd go for. Sorry, when you picked, I thought of another one. So you go ahead, but I'll.
I mean, if you go Mega Drive, I would have gone. Fuck me, I had it in my head and then I completely forgot where it was. Just right, I was thinking. Well, I try and remember that what I was just thinking for the Mega Drive. The iOS game Inside. Where you've got that big freakish monster thing chasing you at the end. So, but I was really grasping at straws. But I like your idea of like making a Toe Jam and Earl or a Cool Spot kind of game.
Yeah. Or the one I was thinking of was Decap Attack. The important thing here is they were all on the fucking Mega Drive. It's just it has to be not just 16-bit graphics, but the blast processing power of the Mega Drive specifically.
Earthworm Jim would be a perfect skin for that.
Yeah. Great shout. So yeah, basically what we're coming down on is like the gameplay is almost irrelevant. It just needs to look like a 16-bit Mega Drive game. That's the only thing that's important. Best and worst of IMDb. So this is going to be tricky. So this is where we pick out a random 10-star or 1-star review for this film. But knows how many reviews this film's got. Like, I don't know, 116?
85.
Maybe less?
85.
85. I did say maybe less.
Yeah.
Are we doing 10-star first?
We'll go 10-star first. So how many 10 stars do you think we got?
14.
23.
Not too far off. I thought it'd be a relatively high proportion. It's one of those films I can imagine it elicits quite strong emotions one way or t'other.
So I don't usually give out the reviewer's name, but I've got to give his name out. It was written in June 2005, titled Sure Glad That Wasn't Our Plane, written by Turd Burglar.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, see, of course, Turd Burglar is going to give this 10-star review. It's just a match made in heaven. If your moniker is Turd Burglar, chances are you're going to love Freaked. So keep that in mind when you listen to us talking about this, when you listen to our own review scores at the end of the film. If you go around and your nickname, if your like Xbox tag is Turd Burglar or something along those lines, add at least another 2 or 3 stars because you probably love this one.
He's only done 3 reviews, all in 2005. Masters of Horror, The Idiot Box, and Freaked.
Oh, well, there's a link there because Idiot Box was the Alex Winter thing, of course.
Yeah. Right. So I can't give this movie a high enough rating. I was a fan of Alex and Tom when they did the show The Idiot Box on MTV, one of the few who saw this. And this movie was just a natural extension of that show. If you have never seen this and have a twisted sense of humor like I do, you will love this movie. I won't rehash the plot, but I think that for me, every joke works. And this is one of my all-time favorite cult movies. Randy Quaid is brilliant as Elijah C. Scuggs, the redneck proprietor of Freakland. And Alex Winter turns in a great performance in his last starring role. Thankfully, Freaked is going to be released on DVD on July the 12th. Thank you, Anchor Bay. So if you haven't been able to find the movie or catch it on cable, you will have your chance soon enough, and I highly recommend it. Oh yeah, how many feminists does it take to screw in a light bulb? 2, 1 to screw it in and 1 to ride my Rodney.
Fantastic. What a great, well, that'll be that, that kind of dark sense of humor he's got, or whatever the fuck you said. Yep. Anyone who tells you what kind of sense of humor they've got, it's usually a bit like, oh, okay, here we fucking go. But like I said, his name's is already Turd Burglar, so there's a warning sign. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with everything he said. I just think well, except for the bit where he said every joke works. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, you really are looking through rose-tinted glasses there. In terms of 1-star reviews, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar amount. I'm going to go with 14 again.
3. You were 9 off. You were 9 off both ways. You were 9 off to 23, and you're 9 off to 3.
Christ. So there's something at least consistent about it. But yeah, I fucked it, whichever way you look at it. So 3, fair enough. I thought there might be a few more.
This was also written in 2005, October 2005.
Maybe it's because the DVD was coming out. It's brought people's attention back to it. It's just like, fucking that film, or, oh, I love that film,
Titled Numbingly Stupid. Well, obviously, a lot of people find this film funny, but what can I tell you? I'm not one of them. This movie makes Airplane and early Jim Carrey movies look like Citizen Kane. The plot begins when 2 actors are sent to Santa Flan, South America, country named for the patron saint of creamy desserts. If you find that to be gut-wrenchingly funny, then this film is for you. I'd rather have a root canal than be forced to sit through this childish humor again. But you may love it. 1 star.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
As I said, I think a lot of people, especially if I told like a random person, like, dude, you gotta watch Freaked, the whole film's on fucking YouTube, they'd come in and like they might just want to punch me in the face. They'd be like, what the fuck were you thinking?
Yeah.
Like, if you told me this was the worst film you've ever seen, I'm like, I get it. Like, as I said, there's one thing about being bad, but if it's obnoxious as well, which this film is, it can really rub you up the wrong way. So yeah. The 1 stars I can believe more than the 10 stars, put it that way. Although going into our own ratings and recommendations, I'm not at either end of the spectrum. This is a really easy one for me in terms of the rating, which for me is a 2. In terms of recommendations, of course, by our clear definition of, go to Joe Schmo in the street telling somebody, oh, you've got to watch this film. Absolutely not. However, there is a world where I'm like, oh, this could be fun, as I mentioned earlier, to watch in a very specific situation. But under our own definition of ratings and recommendations, it is very much a no. So I'm going to go with 2 and no.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, personally, I'd recommend this to my friends to either upset them or let them enjoy it, either way, because that's your friend. But going back to the premise that we do for this, I'm not just going to go to a random in the street and go, do you know what you need to watch?
Going into work. Dude, you haven't seen Freaked? That would be almost mean. That would be like I would call someone out on that. Even if I didn't know them, if I heard someone like the desk behind, like, dude, you got to watch Freaked. I would feel like I'd go out my way and go, no. No, you don't have to watch Freaked at all. Wait. What was your name? Turd Burglar? Oh, in that case, no, please go ahead. You should watch it indeed. So yeah, we're on the same page, 2 and no. But there is fun to be had.
Yeah, your name's Turd Burglar. You've got a 6th sense of humor. You'll love this. And yes, totally agree with the thing. You've jumped the gun for me, but 2. It is a 2.
Yeah, it really is a 2. But as I said, for those who have like a soft spot, we get it. As you said, if 11-year-old Rob was rating and reviewing this movie, I'm sure you would have given a much higher score. That is what it is. So yeah, that's been 1993's Freaked, which I wasn't sure. That tells you how many fucking movies we've done when we're getting down to like Freaked in 1993. My choice next week. I think that this film's obviously a lot more famous. I say obviously, you don't know what it is yet, but the year is also 1993.
Okay.
A lot of the films I've been looking at, maybe it's because I was looking into this. All of a sudden, I have all these movies from 93 in my head, but 93.
Yeah, I'll need a bit more.
Director is John McTiernan. You might get it off that.
93 McTiernan film. Oh, fuck.
But that's the thing. I'm not sure if it's the McTiernan thing is off. I don't think when we've done a whole bunch of John McTiernan films, I'm not sure if this is one of the first ones that would come to mind at all. Obviously, everyone thinks of Predator, and we always think of Rollerball because
I was literally about to say Rollerball.
Sorry, dude. And obviously Die Hard. But this is one of his less. I don't want to say lesser known. It's quite a famous film, but and this is the last hint you'll get, and this I suspect anyone will need. It's much more famous because of who wrote it, and that was Shane Black.
John McTiernan, Shane Black, 93. Mm-hmm. Fuck me. It sounds like my wheelhouse.
This will drive you crazy when I say it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's not Last Action Hero.
Yeah, Last Action Hero. Yeah.
Oh, is it? I thought it was 94.
No, it's not. Oh, see, that's the thing with the year thing. That's thrown me off on this before. I'm just like, it's definitely not that because that was released in 1995, and I fucked it because I'm like, no, it was indeed released in 1993. So yeah, it's the Last Action Hero.
Speaking of rose-tinted glasses, I love this fucking film when I was a kid.
Well, that's the thing. I remember being disappointed by it, and I was like a massive Arnie guy. And I'm not sure if I was kind of wound up in like the negative press around it or anything like that. Of course, when you go back and like the whole premise is really meta and ahead of its time in many respects. But I haven't seen the Last Action Hero in full for donkey's years. Like it might even be close to 20 years. That's how long it's been since I've watched The Last Action Hero. So I have no idea how I feel about it now. And I'm actually really looking forward to watching it. And if you're interested in giving it a watch before we take it on the podcast next week, it's available on Sky Movies at the moment. I don't mean to buy, like if you have Sky Movies, you can just watch it on that. But and obviously if you want to pay for it, it's on Amazon and all that shit. But it's definitely on Sky Movies at the moment. But yeah, I think Last Action Hero is going to be an interesting one.
The guy that killed his kid, the Ripper, in this was played by Tom Noonan, who was Frank from the one we did before. Yeah,
from Monster Squad.
Yeah, and randomly,
I totally see it.
Randomly, I don't know if you know you've done this. His daughter, Schwarzenegger's daughter, and his Jack's daughter, is Mrs. Billy Madison.
Is it really?
Bridget Wilson. Yeah. Oh, Mortal Kombat, Billy Madison, Last Action. It's so
weird. We're doing this whole thing. Like the one thing we've had in loads of these films have had in common. I brought it up in the last few podcasts, and I mentioned it again in this one. Is Tales from the Crypt. Like Tales from the Crypt. Like because I've been rewatching it, and because we've been doing a lot of podcasts from the late 80s, early 90s. Like all the actors, I'm just like, man, I've seen these all in Tales from the Crypt episode recently, and now I've kind of shifted from that, and now it's just random connection between actors and actresses. It was like, the fact that just randomly, because we've already kind of usually decided these a while ago. So I picked Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and then the next film you pick is fucking one with nearly all the same casting. It's just absolutely bananas. But anyway, so oh my god, hiccups again. That has been 1993's Freaked. And next week we're covering 1993's also, The Last Action Hero, a very different film, one we suspect is going to hold up a little bit better, but I don't know how well it's held up. I might adore this film now going back to it, but I think, like I said, I think it's going to be a really interesting rewatch. Just before we wrap this up, when was the last time you saw it?
Oh, we're talking early 2000s. I think I introduced my niece to it.
Oh, so it's a fair for you as well.
It's been a while, good. Yeah.
So I always prefer that, where we have like relatively fond memories, but we're just like, I have no idea if this is going to hold up or not. Yeah. But we'll find out soon enough, and hopefully you do too. So yes. Anything else to add before we wrap this up? Sorry.
Yeah, I've got a couple that I've been saving up. So we've basically I've pulled them off most of our sites. So this is from Spotify on the Monster Squad site. Paul Chesworth, great film. I think we saw this on its release with about 6 people in the Hippodrome in Wrexham.
Awesome.
I dragged my girlfriend at the time to watch all these movies like House, The Gate, The People Under the Stairs, etc. Films that we love as well.
Yeah, they all fit in together for sure.
Yeah. The Monster Squad has its faults, but it's a great feel-good film. The montage with Rock Until You Drop is one of the finest of his generation.
Certainly
I got reacquainted with the movie when I found out that Andrew Gower had made the great documentary, obviously called Wolfman's Got Nards.
I still haven't seen that, man. I really want to see that documentary.
Yeah. And then a YouTube comment for us from.
I'm sorry, just to be clear before we move on, do we want to cover House on this podcast?
I do want to cover House on this podcast.
Yeah, I rewatched that like a year, last year, and it's like
because we were talking about
it. That's a movie, man. House is
because I also want to discuss House 2 on this podcast.
I see
because House 2 is insane.
Yeah, House 2 is insane, dude. House 3 is like a completely different genre. I used to have a weird soft spot for House 3 when I was young. I think it's ostensibly a weaker movie. Anyway, sorry, we're going to do House at the moment. I'll let you move on.
So YouTube comment from our Bill and Ted episode last week. Great discussion of my favorite film about dim-witted but good-hearted time travelers. Oh. So we did a great discussion. So I had to bring that up. Yeah,
we did a great discussion. That's
and then friend of the podcast, he sent this message. I'm not too sure he wants me to read it out, but he sent it to me, so I'm going to read it out. Stephen Dunn. Sent us a mail titled Liam's Worry About Semi-Incestuous Weddings.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, he's regaling us with a story. Hi, guys. Hope you're both well. About 15 minutes into this week's episode, when discussing Bill and Ted's stepmom situation, Liam wondered if his father married his mother-in-law, would he have to divorce his wife? It reminded me of a chap called Ray, who I worked with in my younger days. After knowing him for several years, I happened to ask Ray in conversation how he met his wife. He told me in his teens, he and his brother lived with their dad. His dad remarried a lady who had 2 daughters. Ray joined the army not long after the new arrivals moved in. After a year away, he returned home and fell for one of the daughters, his stepsister, and they ended up getting married. He didn't seem to realize the situation was a bit unusual. and I asked him if the family had found it strange. No, he replied, as though I was stupid. My brother married her sister. I waited for the punchline, but it never came, and my comment about how the situation must have kept guest numbers down at the wedding was met with a bemused look. I know it wasn't incest, but I am not wrong in thinking it was a bit weird, am I?
No,
Stephen,
he's right.
it's very weird.
It's very weird, and that's worse than the situation I was outlining. So in my situation, I've already married my wife. We've got a pre-existing relationship, and then my father marries her mother. So you're like, well, why the fuck should we pay for what they do? But there's still that whole idea of like, it just sounds fucked up. I might just have to bail on my marriage, regardless of how much I love my wife. That, however, where you're like, oh, you get introduced to her as like, this is your new stepsister. And you're just like, I'm going to go full Pornhub on this motherfucker and get into a relationship. No. And I know, yes, you're not actually related. It shouldn't matter. It does, dude. You can't be doing that.
Stephen, you need to come back with us, right? And you need to clarification on this comment you said. My brother married her sister. So did Ray's brother marry your wife's sister? So are they both married to their stepsisters? I need further information.
Yeah, we're going to need clarification, Steve. So he's going to have to come back to us on that one. But thanks for the message. Those are the best kind of messages, the fucking mental ones. So much appreciated. So on that fantastic note, and a perfectly suitable send-off for an absolutely bonkers movie, I've been Liam. He's been Rob, and you have been listening to the Hey You Guys podcast. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Bonkers movie, but great episode. Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.